why do you need adversity to be great? Say hello to my wife. I'm having what's known as a wardrobe malfunction. She is cutting my hair. This has been a dream of hers.
You've endeared me to your millions of viewers.
To humiliate me on the air.
I always cry even though it isn't allowed. So proud.
You make me want to be a better streamer.
A better scrutman.
No, definitely not that. Do you need adversity to be great?
Your skill is you tee up your guests and you make them look, so good.
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. Gets me all fired up, man. Such a good interviewer. I'm ready to go. Jump through the screen. But no, so true.
They can't see I'm dancing by myself.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.
Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are well. It is Friday, May 15th, and it is time for Corona TV. As you can see in the background, I'm in the real world. I'm in this beautiful world where there is no COVID-19, there is no coronavirus. I'm about to keynote on main stage. Actually, I'm lying. I'm not really the keynote. The keynote is David Meerman Scott. He's the opening keynote. I guess I'm the closing keynote, but they all came for him. And hopefully they'll stay for me as well. This is what life used to look like, right? This is what life used to look like, with big halls filled with adoring fans, because we're talking about fans today, and the fan plus democracy equals Fanocracy. I tried to say it 3 times fast last night, but I had a gin martini in me, and so it may have come out slightly differently. But we're talking about fans. One of the first books I ever read as I undertook my marketing journey was this book called Raving Fans. And if we are not creating fans, we may as well get into a different business, because there's no point. It's all about fans and passion. And who better than David Meerman Scott to talk about that soon. So it is a beautiful, beautiful warm day in the Northeast. I'm assuming where David is as well. David, I can see you at the moment, so give me a thumbs up if it's nice and warm in Boston. Yeah, so hopefully we're going to make this short and sweet and get out and enjoy a beautiful day, because we have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings. I mean, it's a beautiful day. I want to be outside, but at the same time, the beaches are opening up in Westport, in Connecticut, in New Jersey, and yet the towns themselves or the states themselves are still closed. And there's a lot of fear and trepidation. You want to get outside. You want to experience the sun. You want that vitamin D. You want to feel alive again, but at the same time, all those nerves and feelings and fears and that paradox in a way. And as I said, this is what happens right now, but we've got to deal, and we've got to deal the best way that we can. So everybody, there's a lot of good things to celebrate. Happy National Chocolate Chip Day. Believe it or not, there is a National Chocolate Chip Day, and it is today. More importantly and more profoundly, it's also National Endangered Species Day. And boy, oh boy, do we need to celebrate conservation success and celebrate every aspect of our beautiful planet and protect our planet. And as we know, the one good thing that has come out of this, if there is one good thing, it's the fact that our planet slowly but surely is healing and needs to heal. So very quickly, next week's interviews. If you thought this week's interviews were good, they weren't. They were great. Next week's are equally great. Not better, not worse, but just awesome. Tanya Luna is going to come in on Monday, and she's going to talk about the art of surprise and delight. Jeff Gothelf is coming in on Tuesday. Mark Schaefer and Jay Bear and Brian Solis, 3 of my fellow speakers and authors and thought leaders. Mark, as many of you may know, and his wife contracted the coronavirus. One thing about Mark is he was streaming and he was talking and he was public and he was sharing as he went through it, and I think helped a lot of people understand and maybe not heal as much as get some kind of peace of mind. So I'm looking forward to them coming in next week. But today we're going to focus on David Meerman Scott. He's an author, he's a keynote speaker, he's a live music fan, he's apparently an aspiring surfer, but not very good at it. Well, that sounds like my guitar playing. So I guess we're in the same boat there. And I'm going to bring him onto the show pretty soon. But before I do, just wanted to, as always, wish happy birthday to all my Facebook friends out there. You know who you are. Just want to say that no matter what you're going through and how lonely you are, how claustrophobic you are, just know that we've got your back, that I've got your back, and that we're celebrating together. And on LinkedIn as well, all of my LinkedIn friends as well. Too many people to mention, so I won't, but happy birthday, guys. Finally, just two things. I have now uploaded about 8 episodes of CoronaTV on iTunes, or on, I guess what it's called now, Apple Music. And slowly but surely, I'll be seeding it out to Spotify and Pandora and SoundCloud, or whatever the hell, whichever platforms will take me. But if you want to listen to Corona Radio, which is the audio version of CoronaTV, you can do so. And hopefully within the next week or two, I'll have most of the archived episodes up for your ear, listening, auditory pleasure or pain, depending on how you view the content. And then 2 more things. I said 2 more things, but I was lying. Just some stuff in the news. I just saw this morning that Apple has bought virtual reality streaming upstart NextVR. I think, again, that tells you where Apple's head is at and where Apple's vision is at right now, in terms of recognizing that business may never go back to the way it was, and that this virtual and this streaming and this reality that we're living in, that I'm living in, that we're living in through CoronaTV and through everybody else that's taken to streaming, and also recognizing remote viewing, remote working, this is here to stay. Finally, just something that did catch my eye. Make of this as you want or as you wish, but just some online sales in April. I think you can see what's happening here. 13%, pants are down 13%, bras are down 12%, and pajamas are up 143%. So as I said to you, make of that what you want, make of that what you will. I wonder what David Meerman Scott has to say about that. David, what do you think about the fact people are wearing less pants and more pajamas?
Well, isn't that obvious? If we're all at home, I guess that's what we're doing, right? I don't wear pajamas, I wear sweatpants. So I've actually been wearing more sweatpants. I have not bought a new pair in a long time. It's good to see you, Joseph. How you been?
It's good to see you. I have been hanging in there, you know, and I'm keeping my spirits high, and I'm optimistic, and I'm excited, and I'm energized by seeing your continued svelte face.
Yeah, so, feeling good about that. Yeah, I am constantly keeping the fitness routine going, which is I'm really digging it right now.
I remember seeing you at our publisher. Well, Rohit and Idea Press is the publisher of my 5th book, but my first 4 books were published through Wiley. And I remember seeing you and just being blown away by this Adonis looking down at me. But how much weight did you lose when you lost the weight?
Just under 60 pounds. Yeah, so I was quite a bit bigger than I am now. And it's just affected so positively everything in my life. How I move on a stage, and how I feel, and how I sleep, and my attitude, and the things that I can do, and I can sit on an airplane seat without having back trouble. I mean, it's just everything has been better. My surfing, although it still sucks, is better. The center of gravity is in a different place, so it's all good.
You can't be perfect at everything. So, but David, you lost the weight and you've kept it off.
Yes.
But I wonder if you could share some thoughts about what it's been in quarantine, and the importance of exercise, and how that physical fitness and health has is inextricably interwoven with mental health as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enormously lucky because my wife and I did a wonderful renovation and addition project to our house that was completed about 3 years ago. And if we had known what the situation was going to be, we'd probably done exactly the same thing, because I have a home gym, which I know is fabulously luxurious, but it's been amazing to have that home gym. And I'll give you a tour of my home office, which is amazing. I've got just a wonderful spot to hang out there in the trees if I want to. I've got my desk over here is a stand-up desk. I've got my Grateful Dead Wall of Fame. And so being able to exercise in the home gym and being able to have a wonderful place to work has made the situation for me, I've actually enjoyed it so far. I don't want it to go on forever, but I've enjoyed it so far. And my wife and I are getting along better than ever, so this is a good thing too. And the house is big enough; she's got her space. We're not on top of one another, so I fully recognize that I'm incredibly lucky to have a space like this, and I know a lot of people don't. But I'm just thankful that I've been able to work in this wonderful environment and with a lovely woman who we support one another during this.
And I looked around the room as you were panning just to see if in fact there was a bat or a gun or anything pointed at you to make sure that you said those beautiful words, but there wasn't. So I believe that everything was, but David, you said something that's funny. I was thinking I don't even need to ask him because I know that he feels it, and then you shared it, and I thought that was fantastic. Which is, I was thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure he doesn't take any of that for granted and realizes how lucky he is, and also how one of the trends, I'm sure you followed it as well, is how there might in fact be a mass exodus from the metropolitan areas and the cities. Right. People that have been, it has been the equivalent of being in a jail cell when you're living in that tiny high-rise New Manhattan apartment, and can't go anywhere.
Well, and the situations that I've been reading about are in a small apartment in Boston or Manhattan, but an extended family, mom and dad and 3 kids and a grandparent in a tiny apartment. And it's just, I can't even imagine that. And so, I'm fabulously lucky to be where I am. And we lived in cities. I lived in New York for 4 years. Then I moved to Tokyo, which is where I met my wife. And we lived there for 7 years. And we lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. So I had my share of cities. I had more than a decade of cities. And we've been at this particular spot now for 25 years, and last 3 years since we renovated the property. So the timing has been brilliant.
Now, I think I met you and I came to know of you through a small book that you wrote. I think it was like an ebook called The New Rules of Marketing and PR. I'm kidding. But it is now, am I right in saying it's in its 7th edition?
Yeah, the 7th edition actually came out last week, which is super cool. And it's sold a kind of a remarkable number of 400,000 copies in English. It's in 29 other languages. So I try to update it every 2 years. The strategies of the New Rules of Marketing and PR are create content online, generate attention. That hasn't changed since 2007, since the first edition came out. But what changes is there's new tools, there's new ideas, there's new stories I want to tell. And so every couple of years I have to update it. The other thing that's remarkable is I never took a marketing course in my life. I never took a public relations course in my life. I don't have an MBA, but this book is used in literally hundreds and hundreds of universities. And I've never taken any of the courses that the book is used to teach, that they use to teach. And so it's kind of interesting that I always joke that I got into Harvard through the back door, not the front door. I was rejected trying to go in the front door, so I had to go in the back door.
It reminds me of a story. I studied marketing in South Africa, and I remember the head of HR at Unilever came to recruit new hires and entry-level assistant brand managers. And I remember him standing up and saying, I'm recruiting for marketing today, and you do not have to have studied marketing or be studying marketing to be eligible. He said, look at me. He said, I'm the head of HR and I've got a zoology major. And I remember looking at him going, you arrogant son of a, how dare you say that when I've studied marketing? And what I realized in later years is he was absolutely right, but he was still an arrogant SOB. But you either have it or you don't. It's either in your blood or it isn't, and it clearly is in your blood.
I mean, I was really lucky because I spent 15 years in the financial information business, pre-internet, I should say pre-web. I worked for companies like Dow Jones and Thomson Reuters. And so I had an opportunity to understand how real-time news works, how real-time data works. And I was started out in sales, then drifted over into marketing. And so I had an unfair advantage when all of a sudden, 1995, the world of the web appeared. And I recognized, because of my background in real-time information, that marketing on the web is not about advertising, which is what everyone was thinking of it as, the banner ads and so on. That's what everyone was talking about. Ad agencies were just pitching banner ads. And I said, no, this is about content. And it was because I had this unfair advantage, having worked for companies like Dow Jones and Thomson Reuters. And that was really super cool. And so I think, at least in my life throughout it, it's the things that I pick up along the way have been more valuable to me than the things that I learned in school.
So in addition to, and putting content aside, because, content is king and context is queen, and it's amazing to see what has stayed the same, because timeless, classic, universal should always stay the same. I have two small follow-up questions regarding new rules. Number one is the decision to update it every 2 years. Is that your decision? Or does it come from the publisher, or is it a kind of a combined one?
It's kind of combined, but I'm absolutely going to continue to do it as long as we're selling books. Because number one, the universities that have, and hundreds of them that have adopted has adopted it as a textbook, they want it to be fresh. They want it to be timely. So that's important. And then I live in fear that someone emails me and says, you dope, why don't you write about this in the book? The first time that happened to me was like 3 months after the first edition came out. And so somebody emailed me and said, you dope, how come you didn't write about Twitter? And of course I knew that Twitter wasn't in the book. And the reason was because I wrote it in 05 and 06. The manuscript was due in 06. Twitter didn't launch until after the manuscript was due, but then the book came out in mid-07, and a couple months later, Twitter started to slowly gather some people who were using it. And I said, yeah, I guess I admit I'm a dope, but when the manuscript was due, Twitter literally didn't exist. Very, very, very quickly, I realized this book is already out of date. It's been out 3 months, but it's out of date. So I had to quickly work on I started working on the very first new edition right then and there.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think some of us would, or maybe secretly hoping that Twitter never came out, but that's another story for another day. But, it's interesting as you were saying that, because my first book, Life After the 30-Second Spot, came out around about 2006.
I love that book, by the way. I read it when it first came out. Yeah.
But I remember as I was writing it, and it was almost like a day before it almost went to print. And I was like, I called my editor and I'm like, I got to write something about this new thing called blogging, maybe just like a half a page. And I just said, what's this blogging thing? I'm like, I don't know. I'll get back to you. But it's amazing how dynamic it is. And yet, I think I've certainly always looked at my writing, and I think you do too, which is we don't write for the fad. We don't write for right now. We write for something that can live forever, even if it needs to be updated. So,
Yeah, that's right. And in the case of your 30-second spot, and also in the case of the new rules of marketing and PR, the original strategies that you were writing about and I was writing about in 04, 05, or 06, all still 100% valid. The things that have changed are the tools and the stories that I choose to tell. So that's kind of cool that the idea is timeless.
I always go back and I always say that every one of your books is like a child. You don't have a favorite, but you love them differently. But the one thing I was so proud of,
I have a child who is my favorite, no question about it.
Which would tell me that there's only one, right?
Oh, I maybe, but there's definitely a favorite, no question about it.
Well, I mean, if we ever get an opportunity to ask them what they feel, we would ask them. Now I wanted to I was just saying that what I was really proud of when I wrote that first book is, I came up with these 10 bold approaches. One of them was called communal marketing, which became known as social media. One of them was consumer generated content. What was so interesting is YouTube did not exist when the book was published. Yes. Facebook did not exist when the book was published.
Right.
And it's just amazing how it played out.
Same thing happened in my case. Facebook existed, but it was only for students when I was writing. The biggest social network was MySpace. It had 20 million users. MySpace, 20 million users, biggest social network on the planet. YouTube had just launched, but no one knew how to use it yet. I mean, it's really different back then, wasn't it?
Very different, and
we're talking like old farts, Joseph. Well, back in the day when YouTube didn't exist.
I remember AOL. You've got mail. So before we get on to Fanocracy, which is your latest book and passion project, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about COVID-19 and how marketing and PR is reacting or has reacted and is changing or may have to change. Speaking to the master himself, I would love to hear your thoughts on how you see kind of the COVID edition of new rules of marketing and PR being affected by what's going on.
I see a couple of things happening. On one hand, there's some companies that are fabulously obnoxious. They're like, COVID-19, you're staying at home. We know you need pajamas, free shipping and 20% off, which I think is just so annoying to try to sell something and make money on the back of the virus. Sure, you can put your pajamas on sale. That's not a problem, but advertising it in a way that you're trying to exploit what's going on, that's, in my mind, that's not okay. So that's one trend I'm seeing. Another trend I'm seeing is that so many companies, people, organizations are much kinder and more generous than I remember even just a couple of months ago. Whether that's Duracell, the battery company that my daughter Reiko and I wrote about in our book Fanocracy, they've given away over 10 million batteries in the last 3 months. 10 million batteries. They give away batteries to first responders. They give away batteries to healthcare workers. They give away batteries to EMTs and others. They also have provided power charging stations in hospital waiting rooms because they recognized a need that no one else saw. And that was that people would be confined to a hospital waiting room, waiting to find out what's happened to their loved one who's battling COVID, and they didn't bring the charging cable, and they're on their phone the whole time, and all of a sudden they've run out of power. Well, here, Duracell has a free battery charging station, a free phone charging station, or the generosity of companies like New Balance that have completely retooled their production line from sneakers to masks, not making any profit on the masks that they're making. Or what you're doing, Joseph, you're putting together this COVID TV, and it's costing you money for the infrastructure. It's costing you time to do it. It's kindness and generosity. So I think that's actually a really super cool outcome. that some organizations recognize that the more you give to the universe, the more that comes back. And I think that's a really important thing that's happening in marketing right now. And I do think it's marketing, the kindness and generosity. I don't want to say it in such a way that it feels forced, or the reason that Duracell is giving away batteries is because they hope that then, it's just now as there is a need, give away the batteries. If the universe feels that's valuable, the universe will return in spades over the next years and decades.
I think that's beautifully articulated. Thank you for those kind words. And what I would add to that is that, even if the motives are, even if there are ulterior motives, just do the thing, do it first. And then even if you are going to get criticized, first of all, doing it is better than not doing it. But doing it for the right reasons, with that kindness, that empathy, that generosity, that is, and I love the fact that that is a new rule. And I think we would all embrace that.
I think so. No, it's really, I think it's really, really important stuff. And trying to take and use this as a reason to make money. Naturally, there are some businesses that are doing really, really well because of this. Fine, this is your opportunity to make some money, but don't try to exploit it to make money. So
now, you wrote a book called Fanocracy, turning fans into customers and customers into fans. But let's just take a step back for a second. I have to protest, because it's not just your name on this book.
Correct.
There is your favorite child, Reiko Scott, who's on the book as well. And it just seems like I have done her a disservice, and you have done her a disservice to have you on talking about it without her.
Yes.
So, I feel like we should just bring her onto the show.
Let's do that.
And have her join us. Welcome, Reiko.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, it's the favorite daughter in the flesh.
I'm glad it was me. I was worried that you had some secret out there.
No secrets.
Can I be the favorite interviewer?
Yes.
So now, Reiko, let me tell you, I've got to try and figure out how to get rid of your dad now, and then I'll just focus on asking you questions. But
please do.
I think every parent dreads their child following in the same footsteps as them. Don't get into marketing, don't get into advertising, don't become an actor. And thankfully, even though you are an author of a marketing book and a business book, in fact, that is not your profession. So I happen to have heard through a little birdie that you just graduated from med school last month, and you're starting as an emergency department MD at Boston Medical Center next month. So first of all, I have to say the new greeting, or the new praise, is thank you for your service and for what you're doing. Thank you for not following in your dad's footsteps. Congratulations. But in all seriousness, how do you feel about going now more than ever into this profession, knowing that you may very well be putting yourself into harm's way?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time to go into the medical profession, definitely. I was still doing rotations when COVID was starting, and even after, I'm still, Boston Medical Center is the hospital that I did medical school at too, so I have the continuity of knowing what's happening in that hospital. And so I could see all the changes happening in real time. I'm still talking to the residents that I'm going to be working with next month. So I saw the whole trajectory, and so it makes me feel a little bit better, not knowing that I'm not going into something where I don't know what's happening. But it definitely is a balance of worrying about my own safety and the safety of my family. I'm probably not going to even do some distance visiting of my dad and my mom after I start in the hospital, but also making sure that I get the education I need to be a good MD after COVID, because I can't only be good at taking care of one disease.
I have a feeling that every single one of your patients and your working colleagues are going to be fans of you and of your approach. In fact, I'm certain about it. Now let's ask a tougher question, and I will open this up to both of you, but specifically to you, Reiko. What was it like working with your dad on a book no less?
I know.
And you guys are still smiling.
It worked out so much better than we could have hoped, honestly. Like, we already had a good relationship, as you know, I am the favorite kid, but but I think we come at it from very different angles. I think it would have been very different if I did follow in his footsteps and I was in marketing, went to school for it, or was even in business at all. But because we were coming from it at very different angles, I think we had this mutual respect for all of the ideas that we had and the collaborative efforts we were part of. So I don't think we ever really got into a fight. We were very much like, this is like, I respect this idea, I think you should change this. And we were both very much like, okay, yeah, sure, sounds great. So, and I think it was also helpful that we both had writing experience before doing this project as well. Yeah, that's true.
Now, and Reiko had to know that it was perfectly fine to tell me that something I wrote was bad and needed to be redone, and that was fine, and she did, because we had kind of worried about, oh, you know, she's got to tell Dad that something Dad wrote this sucks, don't put it in the book, you know, and that happened really quickly, didn't it, with the whole Comic-Con story.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of started, like our relationship started with me being like, I don't think you should write that. And that's kind of how I decided to come into the project at all, in which my dad wrote a short piece on Comic-Con, and he was like, here, can you take a look? And of course, me being the one who actually goes to Comic-Con, dresses up and does the cosplay thing, I was like, it seems like you're coming at it from someone who's from the outside. I think I should be the one writing this. And you were like, yeah, go for it. And so that's kind of how we started out.
That's actually how we decided to write this book together. The thing that has been so super cool for me having her on the project as a specific thing is because of the medical background, but even more than that, Reiko studied something called narrative medicine at Columbia and has been digging into it since then on her own. And it's a real interesting, specific merger of the ideas of literature and the ideas of medicine. So maybe Reiko can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. But that became a very important part of the book.
Yeah. Well, what narrative medicine is basically a way of looking at medicine through a more humanistic angle, kind of using the aspects of literature to see each patient as a whole being and be better at asking them questions and seeing their own particular history that might be different than their, diagnosis. So, and I saw that very easily expand to companies in general, because our basic idea for this book was that all companies, all marketing has to be very human. And so those same ideas of seeing every customer as a whole being with a different history, a different story came into effect very easily.
Well, I love meaty topics and intellectual areas for exploration like that, like narrative medicine. And all I could think of as I see the two of you and the amazing relationship you have, I'm thinking, I wish I could write a book with my daughter. I can't put a TikTok. I did one TikTok. I think she threatened me with bodily harm. Every Instagram has to be vetted. What do I have to do to make myself look cool in front of my daughter? But she's a freshman at WashU at the moment. She's obviously back from school, and I look at some of the courses that are offered, and I have to tell you, like, it's incredible, the diversity and the how they appear to be so eclectic and esoteric, but that diversity of thought and those different approaches, it just rounds you out and makes you a better learner and a better person. So,
and what was really great about us teaming up for this book is, you can see the two of us, we're very different, gender, race, the whole thing, generation, but I'm huge into live music, as is Reiko, but Reiko's really into Harry Potter, and I never did well in any science classes that I took, and I did well in other weird stuff, and Reiko totally went down that science background. So we we couldn't be more different as a writing team, yet we both have had exactly the same idea of how important it is in our life to be a fan of something. And I've been to 804 live concerts. I've been to 75 Grateful Dead concerts. My best friends are the people I go to live music shows with. And so we were like, what's going on there? There's something going on there. And then Reiko would say, yeah, there's something going on there with my friends who go to Comic-Con with me, people I talked to about Harry Potter with. And that's kind of what led to this idea that our thesis became any organization can build the same kind of fandom as the Grateful Dead or Harry Potter.
And that is a very bold assertion, right? To say that any organization can do it, and maybe has done it. So, is there an example of one that you would think not in a million years should or could a company or a brand like that build this army of fans?
You want to take that one, Reiko?
I mean, the one that you always talk about that I think is funny is the underwear company, MeUndies.
Yeah.
Because you love getting your different patterned underwear in your subscription every month, and it's not something that you would originally.
It's an underwear subscription company. And what's so cool about them, I mean, they're just so genuine and so interesting. Their Instagram, I don't know, it must be 500,000 people by now. And people share photos of themselves in their underwear. They share photos of themselves in their underwear with their partner because they make pair underwear, the same pattern for both men and women, or groups of friends, and they're very inclusive of the different types of people who live together, and so it's just really, really, really interesting. And yeah, I subscribe. It's like every month I can choose which pair I'm going to get, and they have exclusives. I mean, I could geek out about my underwear. It's crazy.
I would just like to ask, two clarifying questions. One is, I assume you don't return them when you're done with them, right? They're not.
No.
Okay, good. Just check in. The second thing is, believe it or not, I'm actually wearing them right now. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, wow. I was waiting for you to show us, because they're all worth showing. I mean, they're the kind of, they never actually say this, but the idea is that the underwear is so cool that you can just wear it and show it off, and that's why there's tens of thousands of people who upload photos of themselves in their underwear. And that's super cool. And their tagline is 10 million happy butts and going strong, which I love. Here's another example, though. There's a U.S. government agency with over 50 million fans, a U.S. government agency where you can be walking down any street in the world and not be surprised to have somebody coming towards you with a NASA t-shirt on. And I'm a fan of NASA myself, huge fan of NASA. I wrote a book about the Apollo Lunar program. I have a museum in our house, right, Reiko?
Yes, I'm laughing because before you had that museum, before that renovation that you did to your house, the rocket engine that is now in the museum was just sitting in our living room the whole time I was growing up.
That's a lunar module descent engine, Joseph. It was sitting in the living room. It's now hanging 350 pounds hanging from the ceiling in the museum. And that book that I wrote called Marketing the Moon was turned into a 3-part miniseries called Chasing the Moon, which was on PBS American Experience. So that's how much of a geek about NASA I am. But there are 50 million other people who geek out about NASA, and that NASA t-shirt is ubiquitous. They're a government agency with 50 million fans.
I'm just changing actually the title. So I just added in "and massive geeks." That's a bit of real-time programming change.
Very fair.
But so two things struck me as you guys were talking and and geeking out. One is it doesn't matter to answer the question or to address the answer to my question. It doesn't matter whether you are a government agency or it doesn't matter whether you're undies. There is a common word, and that word is passion. And it's clear that if you love, I remember the example, I'm sure you've seen it as well with MailChimp, from a B2B standpoint. when you love your job, when you love what you do, whether it's email or whether it's, or whether it's working for a government agency, it becomes infectious, and and it brings employees into this equation, doesn't it?
Oh, no question about it. The idea of passion, B2B companies, government agencies, doesn't matter. That when you're doing your work, you're interacting with other people, and it's people to people. And one of the things that was most surprising, at least to me, and I'd be interested to know if Reiko found this to be so surprising as well, is how important people's passions are in their the things that they're personally passionate about, to show who they are in their workplace. I have been sharing that I'm a geek about the Grateful Dead now for 30 years in my work. I never tried to hide it. It's like, I love the band. I'll wear a t-shirt. I'll talk about them. When I started to speak about the Grateful Dead. When I started to write books, they were in every book I wrote in some form or fashion. Like, I'm proud of that. I'm gonna share that. And there are so many people, however, that, they've got their LinkedIn profile here, and that's just business. It's all the serious stuff. And then over here, oh yeah. And then when we're on Facebook, and this is where we hang out with my college friends. And the people who are the most successful seem to be those who can combine those two things and show the world in their business life what they're passionate about in their private life. And it's not work-life balance. That implies that those are two different things. It's how do you bring your work and your life together in such a way that you're always happy. Reiko, I know you're seeing that in different ways, aren't you?
Yeah, the friends I've made in medical school are definitely from shared passions, and that continues, especially now when some of the friends I made were because of video games or something. My friend Victoria, I write briefly about in the book. We became friends because she was wearing a Mass Effect sweatshirt, and I was like, hey, I could be friends with you. And now we have this group chat where we're all playing Animal Crossing together, visiting each other's islands digitally because we can't see each other in person. So, and they're all friends that we, switch from talking about digital animal friends and then to medicine and where we're going to residency and stuff. So that
a bunch of doctors geeking out over a video game. I love it. That's
trying to think
emblematic.
Didn't we call that Frogger? Was that our version of it? We called it Frogger. But so there are two questions that I want to make sure that I ask. Actually, one of them is from someone who's watching right now. But just to echo, David, I think that was a brilliant point that you made about this idea that work-life balance doesn't make sense, because it's not like it's the same thing, And now with this work at home and those two worlds have collided to the point where there's no Venn diagram. There's just that. And so I think that was a fantastic point you made. I just wanted to restate it.
I think if I were to analyze, I don't know if psychologically analyze, the people who have been thriving in the last couple months are those whose work and life kind of already had merged in one way or another. And they're like, okay, well, this is just different. I'm not going to the office. It's just different. I'm still doing the stuff I love to do. I'm still doing the work. The people who have struggled more, I think, are those that have had a big fat line with a brick wall down the middle, and that work is over here and fun is over here. Because then when they're at home constantly, it's, oh my God, where am I on this brick wall? So at least that's kind of what I'm seeing. And that's why you opened up and we talked a little bit about how am I doing? And I'm not getting on any airplanes, but other than that, things haven't changed very much because I've always enjoyed what I do. I've always enjoyed my work, and I've always brought elements of the things that I do for fun into my work so that it doesn't feel all that different.
Yeah, and for me specifically too, like my work is really, being a doctor, but I didn't have to write a book with you. It was because I wanted to, and because
Right.
that's something that I was passionate about, and could only really, that itch could only be scratched by writing a book, right?
Yeah, and you were so passionate about wanting to write about the ideas of how different artists engage with their fan bases, and I think you might find Reiko's take on that, Joseph, pretty interesting, because it was a unique take for me. I mean, you and I, Joseph, both understand the idea of having people who follow our work, read our books, or come up to us after a speaking engagement, want to chat. But Reiko looked at it a little bit differently in terms of just being the fan, and specifically around some of the authors and other artists that you love, Reiko.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and like how some artists are not fan friendly and others are totally fan friendly.
I mean, a lot of where I come from is this kind of part of fandom that does fan fiction, fan art. It's a transformative type of fandom where people take the thing that they love and then work on it and make their own thing out of it. And some artists are really happy about it. They're like, yes, great. Like, you love our thing so much, you want to interact with it on like a creative level, and that's great. And then some are not as happy about it, and they put up boundaries. They're like, no, I own this thing. You can't interact with it in that way. And that really shuts down the fandom. And people are like, if I can't be creative with it, then I'm just going to leave and move on to something else. So my take was really that you can be any type of creator in work or otherwise, and be open to the thing that you put out in the world being consumed and created with in other ways that weren't what you expected.
Reiko,
I'm sorry, one of the quotes that you came up with that I use all the time is, once you put your art out into the world, it no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the fans. And if you think of it that way, and okay, it's out there, do with it what you want, it becomes more interesting and more likely to develop fans than, oh, this is mine, I own it, you can't take it from me. And I'll give you a real specific example. Practically every band on the planet, on the ticket, it says no recording allowed of our concerts. The Grateful Dead said, sure, why not? You can record our concerts. You can bring professional level recording gear into the stadium or the arena and record the shows, no problem at all. They've been allowing that for 40 years. And originally people recorded on cassette tapes and now MP3 files. And that's how they built their fandom, because there was millions and millions and millions of these cassette tapes circulating in the early days where people were exposed to the music, whereas all the other bands are like, no way, you can't record our music, that's stealing.
So I was going to ask, there's so many things that I want to still ask, and I don't think we're going to have time to do it, but this could be a little plug for our after show, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity. If you want to ask a question to David, to Reiko, they're going to offer a little mini live Fanocracy for you, bit.ly/CoronaTV after show. We're going to head over there in just a few minutes. I know that I had a question about the neuroscience behind your hypothesis and your research, etc. Because there are many books that have been written on fans, but the fact that you have the science behind it. So maybe we'll ask that in the after show. I know Jan had a question as well, which is, are there any cautionary tales about being a fan brand where it can go wrong? Maybe we'll put that into the after show as well. Haiti said, enjoying this chat, interesting and real. I think that's the important thing here. You saw this earlier. What a great interview. Cool family. That's the message here. The message is about making the most of your time. I think it even takes us back to MeUndies, doesn't it? It's the fact that it's you and your partner. It's the fact that we are human, we are animals, but we crave that connection. We crave community. We crave the ability to be we, as opposed to, I know it's called MeUndies, but it's really about we. Well, WeUndies might have sounded differently, right? I'm just thinking it through. They were like Failed names. Failed names. Reiko, I'm going to ask you one final quick question, and then we'll move over. But I think from listening to you about and then David, what you said with the Grateful Dead, is it both of your? Maybe I'll ask you both. Is it your assertion that in order to be a brand, whether you're a celebrity, whether you're a company, in order to be an evolutionary, growing, healthy brand, that you're going to need to be and grow fans, you're going to need to be open. You're going to need to let down the guard, the wall, and allow people in and allow people to kind of play around in that sandbox and not control it like maybe you did before Corona or COVID-19 hit.
Yeah, I think it's more about allowing your fans, allowing your community to play around, to be open, and give them the space and the resources, if you can, to do that. And then for you, yeah, you might, if you're a celebrity or someone, you might not want to say everything about your life. You have to have some boundaries, but at least be human. And I think that you can still have your privacy and be a human to your fans. And I think that's the most important thing.
Let me tell you something. If you see a book called Fanocracy and you think for 1 second that you've read everything that there is to read about books on fans or on passion or on advocacy or on zealots, then you haven't read this particular book, because at the end of the day, there is science, there are best practices, but more importantly, there is perspective. And I think in this book, you're not just getting the perspective of David Meerman Scott, which should be enough for you to buy it. You're getting the perspective of Reiko and David together. So I just want to thank you guys for coming in and for sharing your time together, and the joy of a father and daughter together. I think it was tremendous. And any final words from you guys? Otherwise, we'll head over to the Zoom room.
I'll jump in and let Reiko have the last word. Thank you for doing this, Joseph, for doing CoronaTV in general. And it's your gift to the universe, and it's appreciated.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing, and that this is very human, and I like that.
That's awesome. We'll leave it there, and we'll see you guys. I'll be back on Sunday for our Sunday show. And otherwise, the three of us will be in the Zoom room. We'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.